Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the second annual Gold Star Mother's Day Tribute. My name is Patrick Hasna. I'm a member of the Rotary Club of Granite Bay, and I will be your MC for today's festivities. This year, in addition to our program, we will be dedicating our next segment of our Granite Bay Walk of Honor, which will be the POW MIA flag, which you'll see a little later on today. At this time, I'd like to introduce Captain Woodson, who will be doing the invocation for us. Captain Woodson.
Thank you, Patrick. All right, I'll lean in. Might even pick it up. Greetings. Please bow your heads and pray in your tradition as I pray in mine. Gracious Heavenly Father, your Son taught us that greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends. Today we offer a somber but grateful prayer of thanks for those brave souls who have made such a sacrifice for our country, and we pray especially for comfort for their families. We hope that this memorial will continue to serve as a reminder to this community of love, sacrifice, and hope. We humbly ask for your blessing and protection over those who still serve today and the families who support them. All this I ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Captain Woodson. At this time, I would ask that we all rise, face the American flag, and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And please remain standing for Lieutenant Colonel Richard Marshall's singing of the national anthem.
Actually, whoa. It does get louder, doesn't it? I'd like you to join me in singing the national anthem. And I sing it in a lower key. You know why? Because I can't sing it in a higher key. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bomb bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? As I was driving out here, I thought we should have sung that last line, the home of the free because of the brave. You may be seated.
Thank you, Colonel Marshall. We're going to try to speak up a little bit. If you can't hear me, just give me the high sign. This is a very humbling day for me to be a part of this, to be a small part, to be the MC of this program, and looking for faith and looking for guidance and help, sensitivity, and make sure that hopefully I perform well. I did in fact say Rear Admiral Alan Shepard's prayer before I started this. I would like to offer a warm welcome to our distinguished guests who are joining us today. First, Captain United States Navy, retired Rocky Deal. Chief of Staff for Congressman Tom McClintock, former POW Mike O'Connor, MIA family member Kimberly Steinman Elmquist, Manpreet Kaur, Gold Star sister, the honor group to include the 3 founding members, Patty Schumacher, who's also a Gold Star member, Gold Star mother, who will be speaking a little later on today, who is the CEO, Mark Soto, the executive director, as well as Rick Sutter, who's videotaping for us today as the director of operations. It's my privilege to introduce the Rotary Club of Granite Bay's president, Howard Dutra, who's going to give us a background on the continuing project of the Walk of Honor. Howard?
Good morning, and thanks all of you for coming. Several years ago, our club decided that there was a requirement, not just something nice to do, to honor all members of the United States Armed Forces who have served their country so long and so well, and have kept places like Granite Bay the desirable places to live that they are. So we embarked on a project to install a flag for each of the branches of service and an American flag in a place of prominence in the Granite Bay community, so people when driving up and down Douglas could be reminded of the people, however subtly, the people who have made these sacrifices, whether it's the ultimate sacrifice that we're going to honor through our honoring of the Gold Star mothers today, or just by volunteering to put themselves in harm's way for the benefit of all of us. So over the course of several years, we raised the funds, worked with Placer County to make sure that we could install these flags at the entryway to this Granite Bay Park. We are delighted by the outcome. A number of people have taken notice of the flags and know that our Rotary Club is involved, and there are several of our members who have been reminded from time to time when things need to be adjusted. So we know that the community is deeply aware of the project that we've put in place here to honor those members. And I think they're also deeply aware of what the symbols represent. You know, one flag for each branch of the service. Today we're adding a recognition for those people who have not come back, whose status is unknown, and our American flag that we all honor. So we're delighted to be a part of that. Every year we're going to look for some way to enhance this memorial and this recognition in our community for people who do so much to serve all of us. So that we are delighted and very proud as Rotarians and as members of the Granite Bay community to be a part of this project.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd also like to make a special recognition and thanks for the Patriot Guard riders that are joining us today, as you see along, as they were part of last year's. Also our District Governor Ray Ward for Rotary, we appreciate you coming out, and the other members of many of the other clubs that are supporting us today. So thank you for joining us. Last year's Gold Star Mother's Day, we dedicated the Granite Bay Walk of Honor today. This is a continuing venture of the members of the community who have served and in some cases given their lives. The Granite Bay Rotary Club will continue this Walk of Honor over the coming years with benches, trees, and memorials. We want this to be a truly reflective place to honor and remember all of our service members. At this time, I am pleased to introduce Captain, United States Navy, retired Rocky Deal. Mr. Deal served 28 years in the United States Navy and retired as Chief of Staff to the Commander Naval Operations for the Pacific. He is currently the Chief of Staff for Representative Tom McClintock. Please give a warm welcome to Rocky Deal.
You know, it's indeed an honor, and I really mean that. Being part of a ceremony recognizing the sacrifice of our POWs and MIAs and our Gold Star families is very personal to me. And ceremonies like this are more important than ever as we see an active, and some would say growing, movement in the country that seems to denigrate and dishonor 10 generations of Americans who have sacrificed to make the most free and prosperous nation in history. I'm also very proud to be a Rotarian. Seeing what the Rotary Club of Granite Bay has done to honor veterans and is doing today to remember our prisoners of war and those missing in action. At the same time, I want to thank all those who helped organize this event on Gold Star Mother's Day. We must never forget the ongoing sacrifice of those who lost loved ones in the service to our country. We owe them our respect and our continuing support. Remembrance of our POW MIAs, as I mentioned, is very personal to me. When people used to ask me what was the most meaningful part or what was the most important event of being a carrier CO, I'd usually flippantly say something like, well, the things that didn't happen, not running aground, not having a crash on the flight back, not having a collision at sea, all those that are great sport for a general court martial. But actually the thing that was most important to me in my time as captain of America's flagship was getting to meet my greatest heroes, Jim and Sybil Stockdale. Jim Stockdale, many of you may know, was Air Wing Commander flying off the Oriskany when he was shot down in 1965. He spent 7.5 years in the living hell of Howlow Prison, which in the gallows humor of our POWs they nicknamed the Hanoi Hilton. For what he did, his indomitable leadership saved the lives of several of his fellow POWs. And for his leadership and bravery, he was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor, rightly so. Sybil Stockdale, was the strongest woman I've ever known. She became the leader of the National League of Families of American POWs. She fought with our political leaders, including 2 presidents, to keep faith with our POWs and to bring them home. For her extraordinary efforts, she was recognized with the Navy Distinguished Service Medal. Sybil and Jim adopted my crew. They passed on many occasions, forums that we had, their collective wisdom and perspective, helping the families bear up under the separation and difficulties of deployment. Additionally, they brought me into the close-knit community of former POWs. And on several occasions, this allowed me to hear firsthand from the most stalwart group of patriots I'll ever know, and hear of the unimaginable hardships, yet ultimate triumph of the human spirit. Jim and Sybil are both gone now. What I learned from them, and those men the Admiral referred to as his fellow convicts, sealed my respect for an understanding obligation we have to our country's POWs and MIAs. So thanks to the Granite Bay Rotary Club, to the Gold and Blue Star mothers who helped bring about this ceremony. Thank you for letting me be part of it. And most importantly, thank you for all you do to recognize veterans, the sacrifices they have made, and acknowledge the sacrifices that must continue to be made in sustaining freedom. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rocky. This time I am pleased to introduce Kimberly Steinman Elmquist. Miss Steinman Elmquist is a Gold Star MIA daughter of Sergeant John K. Carbo of the United States Army, who went missing on March 16th, 1962. He was flying aboard a military charter flight, flying Tiger Line and Flight 739. It's left Travis Air Force Base, refueled in Guam, and was never seen again on its way to Saigon. Kimberly?
Thank you, everybody, for coming out today. I really appreciate the support for our Gold Star families and our Blue Star moms. I'm not a good public speaker, so right now they said, think of your audience as being naked. Well, then I got it turned around thinking that if I'm thinking of you being naked, you're all thinking of me being naked, and I couldn't handle that. So let's scratch that plan. My father was in the United States Army. He boarded a plane in Travis Air Force Base with 92 other U.S. service members, all Army Rangers. So I'm not speaking today just for myself, but for all the 92 other families, plus the 11 crew members that were on Flying Tiger 739 the day it disappeared. My father, like I said, boarded the plane in Travis. He had gotten orders just a short time later. He was in Fort George Meade, Maryland when he got the orders, and spent one day going back home to say goodbye to his mother and father, brother and sister, and my mom, Tanya, wherever she is. She's out there somewhere. And then he left for Travis Air Force Base. On his way, they refueled in Honolulu. They stopped in Guam to switch out crew members, and the soldiers were allowed to deplane from that flight. While they deplaned, the plane was left in an undisclosed area, not very well lit. So anybody could have gotten on board that plane. We don't know. So they ended up reboarding the plane and heading for Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines. About an hour and a half into the flight, radio contact was lost with Flying Tiger 739, and it was never seen or heard from again. A freighter on the horizon apparently saw what seemed to be like an explosion in the air with two fireballs falling into the ocean. They went to search the area, nothing, no wreckage, no debris. So after fuel exhaustion would have happened, they sent out a search party, but it was the largest land and sea search at that time. It covered 20,000 miles of ocean, and they searched for 8 days, only to find absolutely nothing. No wreckage, debris, no bodies, no life rafts, nothing. What happened to Flight 739 and the 93 U.S. Army Rangers on board? No one knows. We're not getting any information from the government. Every time a family member approaches, well, I have approached several people, government officials, military higher-ups, you name it. I get so far with my questioning, and we'll get you some answers, is what I hear. They give me some answers, but then this brick wall goes up, and they don't talk to me about it anymore. I have no idea why. Apparently, these U.S. Army Rangers were on a secret mission to go over to Saigon. My dad was trained in chemical, biological, and radiological warfare, jungle combat, and radio communications, as were a lot of the others. They were handpicked by President Kennedy to go on this mission. So why aren't we getting answers about what happened? Some kind of cover-up, we think. Sabotage, possibly. Anyway, my goal, and the goal of 92 other families, is to get their names etched on the Vietnam Veterans Wall in Washington, D.C. They're not recognized there. They're not recognized anywhere. A lot of the memorials in the home states won't put their names on the wall because they weren't classified as being in combat or in the geographical area of being in Vietnam. How did they know they weren't in the geographical area? The plane vanished. They could have flown into the area. So anyway, we're trying to get their names on the Vietnam Wall. This March I was able to go back to Washington, D.C. and actually meet some of the other family members that had a loved one on that flight. I stayed in an Airbnb where I met another daughter, another son, an uncle, a sister, and a brother, all of different families on that flight. It was kind of like we bonded instantly because I had the same story as these other people had. We had the same story. There's not a lot of people that can say my dad disappeared on his way to Vietnam. We don't know what happened, but we instantly found a bond. And as we compared notes, it showed that my story was the same as their story. We weren't getting any answers. We're still not getting any answers. By going to Washington, D.C., we passed out information to the committee for the Senate Armed Services Committee. And in there was a whole packet of our information of what we found and researched for over several years. We met with Senator Gary Peters and the defense legislative aides of several other senators. Nothing really came out of that. It was nice to be able to tell our story to people in government, but what's going to happen, we don't know. Anyway, we were able to go to the Vietnam Wall on the 57th anniversary of my dad's plane disappearance. 57 years of not knowing what happened. No closure. It's an open wound. So being an MIA daughter, isn't so bad for me because I was only 20 months old. I didn't really know my dad. But for my mom, it's got to be terrible. She tells me of watching the news every night when the soldiers were returning home from Vietnam, just hoping to see my dad's face come across that TV screen. Maybe it was a sad mistake. And maybe he wasn't missing. She even has dreams to this day that her husband comes home, wondering why she's remarried. We've left him. Anyway, so we also got to go to Arlington Cemetery, where we found that there were actually 8 headstones for people that were on board that flight. How can you put tombstones up for somebody that's not there? So, and you'd have to be, I don't know, it's just weird. So, it was nice to be able to meet the other families, and I'm just at a loss for words at this point. Anyway, so let me just go through my mind real fast. Okay, Senator Gary Peters, the one who had held the conference for us in Washington, D.C. He's come up with a Senate bill, Senate Bill 1891, and it's currently on the Senate floor in the Natural Resources, Energy and Natural Resources Department. And it should actually be in the Armed Services Committee. But for some reason, it ended up in the Natural Energy Committee, where we feel like it's gonna go there to die. So, I'd like to ask everybody to support me in writing your congressmen, your senators, any military official that you know of that can help find a piece of this missing puzzle. We don't know what they were doing going over there, and we're not ever going to really find out, I don't think. So it's hard being an MIA daughter. There's no closure. No closure. And I hate to feel, or I hate that these heroes are going to be lost on the Vietnam Wall, or in the Vietnam War. So, thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. At this time, I am pleased and honored to introduce Manpreet Kaur. Manpreet is the sister of Corporal Gurpreet Singh, killed in action 22 June 2011. She was actually the family member that opened the door to the military to inform the family that her brother and their son was killed. Please join me in welcoming Manpreet.
I'm already a little emotional, so I'm just gonna take a deep breath. And there's a saying I always say when I start a speech, and in our culture, is just to recognize each other. So maybe my family will say it, but I'm just gonna say it's only a few words. It's just Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. It's been a really emotional weekend for my family and I. It was my brother's birthday yesterday. Birthdays and anniversaries are always really hard for the family. And a month ago, somebody told me, hey, I want you to speak. I would like a sister to speak. We hear from mothers and daughters or wives. It would be nice to see how siblings are affected by a loss of a brother or a sister. And I'm like, yes, I would love to, I want to be there for our Gold Star brother or sister. Some of them were really young when they lost their sibling. And then they told me, hey, it's going to be September 29th. And I almost hesitated because I knew it would be already emotional weekend for me. And I finally, yesterday, gathered my courage and I wrote this. I just wrote a little bit about my brother so you all can know what kind of person he was. And just some little story of things he would tease me about and why he joined the Marines and his journey through it. My brother, Corporal Gurpreet Singh, he was my best friend, my savior, my life support. I never made any decision without his input. We always did everything together. Even though he was younger than me, a year and a half, he always acted like my older brother. He always protected me, always wait up to see when I'll be home, and it was nonstop. Growing up, he always looked up to military men or policemen. And also in our culture, we have a lot of gurus that have fought in wars to fight for injustice, and he always looked up to them as well. And I remember one time, he was 5 years old, starting kindergarten, and he said, I'm gonna pack up my bag and I'm gonna join the police academy. And I actually believed him, and I was like crying. I'm like, don't leave me. I have to go to school by myself. And he's like, no, I'm done with this. I have to go help the country. And then my older cousin, he was babysitting us, and he stopped and was like, hold on there, buddy. First of all, you're only 5. You cannot leave anywhere without an adult. And also, you're too young to join the police academy. And he was like, well, one day it will come. And then we moved to United States. He was 10 years old. It was in 2000, and that's when our life changed. In 2011, you know, when September 11 happened, he was only 11 years old. And that day affected our family in a huge way. We just immigrated in this country, you know, and my brother still was like, I'm gonna be a police officer or maybe join the military. But we faced a lot of hardship. I remember my dad, he will always wear his turban, and that time he was afraid to wear his turban. And I remember for 2 years he gave that up because he didn't want for us to be discriminated against. And I think that pushed my brother to join the military, to know that no, we are Americans, we love this country, we came here because there are so many opportunities, and that's the main reason he joined the Marines. He looked at all the branches, but he decided, I want to be up front when duty is called. And he was only 17, just thinking about graduating, and I was so proud of him. Like, if this is what you want to do, this is your calling, this is how you want to represent yourself, I'm so proud of you. Please go ahead and do it. But my parents, on the other hand, were having a really hard time. They're like, we're not signing this paper. There's no way. There's war going on. You're our only son. Why can't you go to college? We'll pay for your 4 degrees. Like, just join, do something else. And he's like, no. If you won't sign the paperwork, I will wait till I'm 18, but this is what I want, and this is I feel like is my goal in life. So my dad hesitated, but the recruiter came home. They told him about what happens, how the boot camp is, and my dad finally said, okay, if that's what you want, son, I have your back. And he was first deployed in 2009, and that was really confusing time for us. We never had any family member join the military, let alone join the military in America, and we had no idea how boot camps work, how can we call him, can we send him letters, how this whole process will go. But he did his first tour, thank God he was okay, and he came home. And he told me, and my mom, she was sitting right there, and he's like, Mom, I'm alive because of you, because all the prayers you have done for me. Because he was so close to enemy attacks so many times, and he came home without a scratch. And he was almost done with the Marine Corps. I was going to finish 4 years, and in 2011, he decided he's going to extend his contract so he can make it to the second tour, because he said he's been training these junior Marines, and he's like, I cannot let them go fight this war without me being there. They need my support, they need my guidance. So he extended 4 months, and in March 2011 he was deployed to Afghanistan again. And that time it was just really hard time in Afghanistan. We keep hearing about so many men, KIA, and different units, and his unit, which was 1-5. And earlier in June, he actually got shot in his stomach. And of course, our whole family panicked when we saw this. And then, we called him, like, what happened? He's like, I'm fine, like, somebody shot me in my stomach, but don't worry. Like, I was wearing a bulletproof vest. I went in there next day. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, how do you get this courage? Why don't you just go to the hospital for a month and take a break? But no. And we talked to some of his Marines, and they said he got right up when he got shot, and he tried to find where the enemy attack was coming, and he got them to safety. And after that, he was promoted from Lance Corporal to Corporal. He had his ceremony in Afghanistan. And I remember I was talking to him on the phone. I'm like, I'm so proud of you. Like, who does this? Like, who stands up and take a bullet for other people? Like, you're just amazing. And he's like, okay, that's true. But remember, now when you write me letters, write Corporal, not Lance Corporal. I'm like, got you. And I just can still remember the day when the Marine showed up to our house and told us that he was killed. And I didn't want to believe them. Like, that's not true. We just talked to him. Are you sure he got shot, but he's okay? Like, there has to be a mistake. And they're like, no, I'm sorry. And I just felt like the time stopped. I didn't know what to do. My brother has been in my life forever. And I didn't know how I could live without him. And then I started thinking about my mom. She was at work, and they're like, we need to know where your mom works. We have to tell her. I'm like, you cannot go to her work. She would be devastated. She could not drive. So I go to my mom, and I'm like, Mom, just come home. Like, something is going on. I think Grandma is sick, and she knew it. She saw me, and she's like, what happened to your brother? And then I pictured that day, and it feels like a dream that we could go through this much pain. It doesn't seem real. He was only 21. He had his whole life ahead of me. And he would talk to me how he wanted to go to University of San Francisco. He said, maybe I'll be a police officer. Maybe I'll be a psychologist. I'm like, yes, I got you. I'll show you the route. I'm going to college right now. I'll help you with your homework. Just come back home. And after he died, I think we all felt like the life was so unfair and it's so cruel, and we just kind of gave up for a while. And then we started meeting other Gold Star family. I think we met Patty. She was our savior, because I remember reading a letter she mailed to us, and she was so genuine. Like, she was one of the few people I know that I was like, Mom, you have to reach out to her. She understands what we're going through. Nobody else will understand this but another Gold Star family, So I'm so thankful, because we really needed the support at the time. And I truly feel like this community has got our back. Every time we need something, they're there for us. Our Gold Star family, I could call them anytime. I have showed up to even our Blue Star moms, like, sad and crying, and they're always have been there for us. If there's an event for my brother, something we need to honor my brother, they're all are here for us. And I remember it's been a month since my brother died, and it just feels like a dream. And we get this letter from my brother that I have written just 2 days before he died. And it almost feels like a confirmation, because in the letter, he literally wrote, Mom and Dad, I know you guys were sad, and I know you guys were afraid when I decided to volunteer to go to my second tour, but that's the best decision I have made for myself and for my Marines. And I know when my parents read that, they found some peace that he died doing something he loved. Because a lot of us don't know. We're still figuring out what we want to do, and he was able to figure this out at age of 17. And he did, and he died doing what something he loved to do. And yesterday, he's supposed to turn 30, and I imagined what we would do for his 30th birthday. I pictured him drinking his favorite drink, Royal Crown, in Vegas. Then I imagined maybe he will be married and have kids. Maybe he'll just stay home with the kids and the wife and us. But now it's just imagination, we will never get to see him grow up, to see what he will be like as a father, as a husband, maybe even a grandfather. And I grew up, we were only a year and a half apart, and I never thought my brother would die before me. My parents never imagined their son would die before them, and it's one of the hardest things you can ever imagine. It's impossible for me to even describe. My daughter, she will never meet her uncle, but yesterday she bought a cake, and she saved a slice of cake for him, and she's like, I think today he's gonna really come and visit us. And then it was 7 o'clock and she gave up and she ate the whole piece. So and then after we celebrated his birthday, we went outside, my daughter and I, and we saw this beautiful rainbow. And my brother and I told my daughter, I'm like, look at this beautiful rainbow. And she looked at me, she's like, Mommy, I think it's a sign from Mama G, which means uncle. And I'm like, you know what? You're correct. That is a sign from Mama G. So today I want to remember all the heroes that have sacrificed their life for us and recognize our Gold Star family, especially Gold Star mothers and my mother, and just know by talking about them and doing these events, we're keeping them alive. We're keeping their memories alive, and that's all it matters. And I love you, my little big brother. And thank you for always sending us signs and letting us know you're here. And I'm so proud to call you my brother. You're the bravest warrior I ever known. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Manfred. Thank you very much. It is my privilege and honor to introduce our keynote speaker today, Chief Warrant Officer retired Michael O'Connor. He enlisted in the United States Army as Warrant Officer training on July 6th, 1966, and he was appointed Warrant Officer and designated Army Aviator after he completed helicopter training on June 30th, 1967. Warrant Officer O'Connor then deployed to Southeast Asia, where he served as a UH-1 Huey pilot with Battery C, 2nd Battalion, 20th Artillery, 1st Cavalry Division in South Vietnam from 1967 until his helicopter was shut down in August. He was captured and taken prisoner on February 4th, 1968. After spending 1,857 days. After spending 1,857 days in captivity, Chief Warrant Officer O'Connor was released during Operation Homecoming on March 5th, 1973. He briefly was hospitalized and was treated for his injuries and recovery at Fort Knox, Kentucky, and then left active duty and entered the United States Army Reserve on June 20th, 1973. Chief Warrant Officer O'Connor joined the Michigan National Guard as a UH-1 Huey helicopter pilot on February 1st, 1974, and then left the Guard on August 1st, 1975. Chief Warrant Officer O'Connor was also received one of the highest of our country's awards, the Silver Star. His citation reads, Chief Warrant Officer O'Connor, Michael F. O'Connor, distinguished himself by gallantry and intrepidity in action connection with military operation against an opposing armed force while prisoner of war in North Vietnam during February of 1972. Ignoring international agreements on treatment of prisoners of war, the enemy resorted to mental and physical cruelties to obtain information, confession, as well as propaganda material. Chief Warrant Officer O'Connor resisted their demands by calling upon his deepest inner strength in a manner which demonstrated great devotion, to duty and country, in accord with the finest military traditions of military service. Please welcome Chief Warrant Officer Michael O'Connor.
First of all, it's It's my honor being here. Your stories are so compelling, and it's so reflective of so much what our families went through during the Vietnam War, the unknown, and just a sense of sacrifice. And I'd just like to say to you, welcome to America. We're glad you're here. Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming to this dedication ceremony. But more importantly, we're here to honor those who gave that last full measure of sacrifice. And to those Gold Star mothers and their families that have to endure the endless pain of their loss. The Blue Star Mothers of America was first national organization that acknowledged the terrible toll that having a family member in harm's way was taking on family members, specifically the mothers who gave birth to the sons and daughters fighting in World War II. Through the decades, since their founding in January 1942, the Blue Star Moms have been tireless in their support of our service members and their families. Shortly after I was captured, I recall how worried I was that the news of my missing in action would affect my mom and dad. I was suffering terribly, but at least I knew I was still alive. But my family had no idea. It wasn't until I returned home that I learned the rest of my brave crew were killed in a crash by subsequent small arms fire. I can only imagine how much that information weighed on my family. I know it may seem difficult to some to understand, but anyone with children knows the anguish you feel when your child is suffering. As a father of two wonderful sons, a wonderful daughter-in-law, and a precious grandson, I don't know how any parent could deal with the pain of not knowing what is happening to them or the reality that they are gone. Like most parents, I'd rather spend eternity in the worst conditions I've ever experienced than to have anything happen to them. Like most parents, I'd pray to God to take me instead of them. So it is with great empathy and heartfelt sorrow that I feel we must first honor and support in any way we can those Gold Star mothers and their families. Their loved ones must never be forgotten. I also feel it's essential that we always remember those who were wounded while serving our country. Some physical wounds are relatively minor, like mine, and can heal over time. Others, however, have life-changing physical, and as we are realizing more and more, psychological injuries. Again, these Silver Star moms, their families, must suffer through the day-to-day anguish of watching and helping their loved one try to salvage their life. Again, they must bear the unbearable. One of the unique agonies of the families of those who are missing in action, or POWs, is the not knowing. As I mentioned, I was concerned how my missing in action would affect my parents, but I had no idea how much until I reunited with them and the rest of my family in Ireland Army Hospital at Fort Knox, Kentucky. My family was very involved in the Michigan chapter of the National League of Families. As such, they were very close to many MIA families. Although they were all graciously shared in the joy of my return when I met with them, they all shared the same sentiment of facing the continued uncertainty of their loved one's fate. Even if they knew their loved one was gone, they could find some solace in just knowing that they were no longer suffering and were in the hands of God. But not knowing for certain was hell. How do they ever laugh, or smile, or celebrate, relax, go out to dinner, or even sleep, if their loved one was, by some miracle, still alive in some horrible, torturous jungle prison camp? As soldiers, we often receive honors, awards, and other recognition for our hardships and sacrifices. Our families, however, only a flag draped over a casket at our passing. I'd like to propose today that it's about time that we formally acknowledge the great sacrifice of the families of our service members, killed, wounded, missing in action, or currently serving our country. I'd like to further suggest, but only with the consent of the Blue Star Mothers of America organization, if we could expand on their theme and have our nation present an appropriate medal to every surviving parent, spouse, child, and sibling of those killed, wounded, missing in action, or currently serving. I propose a round medal which could be worn as a brooch or on a lapel, with a large gold star in the center for those killed in action, a large silver star for those wounded in action, the POW silhouette on a black background for those still missing in action, and a large blue star for those serving. Around the top of the perimeter of the face would state the relationship of the wearer to the service member, such as Mary Smith, mother of Sergeant Joe Smith, and on the bottom, the status such as killed in action, followed by the date of the action. Such a medal would not only give recognition to those families, but would also act to continue to honor those service members and veterans who gave so much for this country every time it is worn in public. If more Americans saw the hundreds of thousands of family members who are also bearing the burden of loss, suffering, and sacrifice from their loved ones' service to this country, maybe they would have a greater appreciation for what we have. America has evolved into the most benevolent superpower in the history of humanity. If we fail to confront the evil empires of the world, history has shown that they will continue to fester and grow and result in a far more devastating confrontation later on. It is only the willingness of our young soldiers to serve a cause greater than themselves that has spared the world another major global conflict. Today, we honor their service and the service and sacrifice of their families. Thank you, and may God continue to bless this country.
Thank you, Mike. At this time, I'd like to reintroduce the president of the Rotary Club of Granite Bay, Howard Dutra, who will give you a background on the POW MIA flag. Mr. President.
Again, thanks to all of you for being here. One of the things that's an element of today's ceremony is a dedication and an honoring of the POW flag that we've added to the flags out at the entryway. So I thought it was important that you know a little bit about that flag and understand where it came from and how it came about. From the Revolutionary War to Korea, thousands of U.S. soldiers, Marines, airmen, and sailors have been taken prisoner or gone missing. But it took the Vietnam War and a sense of abandonment felt by wives and family members of Americans held captive to bring forth what has evolved into the nation's POW MIA symbol. The POW MIA flag is inextricably tied to the National League of POW MIA Families, which was born in June of 1969 as the National League of Families of American Prisoners in Southeast Asia. Its mission was to spread awareness of the mistreatment of prisoners of war at the hands of their captors. It was the brainchild of Karen Butler, wife of Navy pilot Philip Butler, who had been shot down over North Vietnam in April of 1965, and Sybil Stockdale, whose husband, Navy Commander James Stockdale, was the highest-ranking POW in North Vietnam. Stockdale had been held prisoner since September of 1965, when his A-4 Skyhawk went down over Vietnam. In 1971, League member Mary Hoff came up with the idea of creating a flag as the group's symbol. It took nearly a decade, but the POW MIA flag began getting attention in a big way in the early 1980s. In 1982, it became the only flag, other than the Stars and Stripes, to fly over the White House, after it was first displayed there on POW MIA Recognition Day. In 1989, the flag was installed in the Capitol Rotunda. In 1998, Section 1082 of the Defense Authorization Act, codified as Title 36, Section 902 of the U.S. Code, I'm sure you're all going to remember that, mandated that the POW MIA flag be flown over the Capitol, the White House, the Korean and Vietnam Veterans Memorials, the offices of Secretaries of State, Defense and Veterans Affairs, of the Selective Service System, and on the grounds or in the lobbies of every major military installation, every post office, and all VA medical centers and national cemeteries on 6 days: POW MIA Recognition Day, Armed Forces Day, Memorial Day, Flag Day, the 4th of July, and Veterans Day. So that's a little history of the flag.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Howard.
You're welcome.
At this time, we are going to participate and have the Marine Corps in the flag folding ceremony by the Marine Corps recruiting. At this time,
Okay, push the button.
push the button.
You know technology.
At this time, I'd like to introduce Gold Star Mother Patty Schumacher to introduce the Marines who will be, well, you should talk a little bit. After that, you get to talk.
Okay, can you hear me in the back? Up. Up.
Up.
More? Is that better? Okay. Before I begin, I want to go over what the military calls our blue, silver, and gold star. A blue star family is a family whose loved one has enlisted in the military service. So as soon as they have signed on that dotted line, that family is now a blue star family. Once that loved one has gone into service, into a zone that is considered a conflict zone or a combat zone, and that person is injured, they are now a Silver Star family. A Gold Star family, as you have guessed, is that loved one has died while in service to our country. At this point, I want to introduce the other Gold Star families that are here. Could you please stand? Could you, starting here with Rinda, could you please say your name and your loved one?
I don't think anybody can hear me.
That's all right.
I'm Rinda Pope, and my son, Alexander Barella, was in the Army. He was 19 when he was killed in action in 2007.
My name's Karen Meredith. My son is First Lieutenant Ken Ballard, who was killed on Memorial Day 2004, and he was my only child.
My name is Jim Burns. My brother was First Lieutenant Robert Scott Burns, who played right across the street. He was killed in 1968, married only 2 weeks.
My name is Nirmal Singh, and my son was US Brave. My daughter did talk about him, so he died killed in an accident on June 22nd, 2011. And my wife, she's set now for
Do we have one in the back?
My name is Tanya Geronimo Wagner, and I'm the mother of Kimberly, who spoke earlier. My husband was on Flying Tiger 947 and disappeared in November or March of 60. So open book.
Thank you. I believe we also have another MIA daughter here.
Yeah. Oh, as I fall now. I am Carrie Pepper. My brother, Tony Pepper, Anthony John, went missing April 6, 68. They've been back 3 times. No, nothing. They're going back again next year. And he does have a memorial at Arlington. There's a special memorial section there just for that. So I'm really proud that he's there.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you. My name is Patty Schumacher, and I'm the Gold Star mother of Lance Corporal Victor Dew, United States Marine Corps. Victor is a 2008 Granite Bay High School graduate. He entered boot camp in September 2009 and earned the title of United States Marine in December. He entered School of Infantry in January of 2010, graduated March of 2010, and was placed with 3rd Battalion, 5th Marine Regiment, 1st Marine Division out of Camp Pendleton in California as an anti-tank missileman. The military weapons that fall under the control and responsibility of the Marines anti-tank missilemen include the TOW, a tube-launched, optically tracked, and wire-guided weapon system, as well as a Javelin weapon system. Both are widely used anti-tank missiles, and they are capable of damaging and defeating tanks in battle. While on his pre-deployment leave in August of 2010, Victor became engaged to Courtney, while we were on our family vacation in Disneyland. He deployed September 25th on his fiance's 20th birthday. 18 days later, on October 13th, 2010, we got that knock on the door telling us our firstborn son was killed. Victor became the first graduate, and thankfully so far, the only graduate of Granite Bay High School to be killed in combat. I can go on right here and now and tell you about Victor so much that it would take at least 1 to 3 hours. But I won't. Any of the Gold Star families here and those families of our POWs and MIA would love to share their stories of their loved ones as well. So right now, I want to leave that after the dedication so that all of us are available to talk to you. Gold Star Mother's Day. On June 23rd, 1936, a joint congressional resolution designated the last Sunday in September as Gold Star Mother's Day, a holiday that has been observed each year by a presidential proclamation. In 2011, it was changed to Gold Star Mothers and Families Day. From President Franklin D. Roosevelt, quote, "This weekend, our nation recognizes and honors all moms who have lost a son or daughter while serving in the United States Armed Forces. Amazing moms who have raised sons and daughters, our nation's heroes, willing to serve our country without hesitation and with honor. May we never, ever forget the selfless sacrifice their sons and daughters made in service to our country. I honor each and every one of you and will never forget. God bless you all. God bless your sons and daughters. I will always remember." There is nothing adequate which anyone in any place can say to those who are entitled to display the gold star in their windows. America lives in freedom because of the sacrifices of America's finest citizens and the mothers of those who raised them. Unquote. What I want to touch briefly on right now is what the family feels and goes through. The missed birthdays and graduation of siblings, the births of cousins and nieces and nephews, all the holidays and family gatherings where the families, us moms, still wait for them to open that door and step in. Our big fear of forgetting their voice, their smell, and still our biggest fear of others not remembering them, of your child being forgotten. What I'm going to read now is something I wrote to Victor 6 years ago on September 25th, 2013, on the 3-year anniversary of his deployment date, as I reflected back 3 years earlier on that cold September morning in Camp Pendleton as we waited for the buses to arrive. Just 4 days ago, that deployment date became 9 years ago. Deployment day, September 25th, 2010. I don't know what made me think I could sleep last night. I guess the body and mind know what is truly going on. You can try to hide, but it is best to meet it head on and tackle it to the best you can and become stronger for doing so. You may not win, but you will get stronger. 3 years ago last night, we raced in the middle of the night to see you. 7 hours driving. After a full day of work, externship, and school. Dad, Kyle, and myself raced to Camp Pendleton to see you before you deployed. The sudden change in schedule, the change of heart in saying, I need to be there to see you off. No matter what, I will be there. I will give you that hug and kiss. I did not realize the true hell you were being deployed to. I guess it is for the best. I had a few more days of innocence, a couple more weeks of stupidity. When you were home on leave, you asked me not to watch The Pacific, Band of Brothers, and Saving Private Ryan. I still have not watched them. I don't know if I ever will. I am forever grateful of that cold September morn. I was layered in probably 5 layers of shirts and sweaters. I was so cold and shivering. No, I would not be a good Marine. I admit it. But you are. It is so hard to believe that 3 years are already gone. It was just yesterday, wasn't it? I remember sitting, waiting. Hurry up and wait. The chats, the smiles, the just staring off at each other. You know, you showing me how the moon looks with the night goggles. Very cool, I must say. Just being there and waiting, yet we were with each other, just like we should be. Family. That hug was supposed to last 7 months. Now, it needs to last a lifetime. Sometimes that is hard to remember. The closeness, the warmth, the security of being cared for and loved. Yes, you are my son. But you had such a way of letting everyone know how much you cared and how much you would be there for them. Oh, but that hug, that smile, how you hid any concerns from us. I need to remember that hug. The gleam in your eyes, the smell of your hair and cologne. Why is it that sometimes I feel that that is gone from my memory? I have to remember. Those last steps, as you were getting on the bus, did you look out the window and see me cry? I hope I hid it from you well enough. Oh, that deep down impending fear of doom. My heart sank. I just knew that the last of your boot was the last time I was going to see you. Did I hide it well enough? I tried. I never talked about it. I tried to push it away to a space in my brain that is where those memories go, that we can't remember, but know that they are there somewhere. Thank you for allowing me to be your mom. Thank you for being you. Thank you for the love and smiles, laughter and tears. Thank you for your hugs. Oh, those hugs. Given freely and with such warmth. Generally given from the heart. Thank you for always loving us. Thank you for forever watching over us. Thank you for teaching me more these last 3 years than I ever thought I could ever learn or ever become. It is because you lived, I am who I am. It is because you died. I am who I am. I believe I am a much better person because of you. Deployment. So many things I can say. So many more tears to shed. So many more years to shed them. Deployment is a going away with a coming back. Your physical body came back home, thankfully. But the loving soul that you are did not. For me, you are still deployed. For me, I shall await our reunion hug. My son, my hero, always loved, never forgotten. Love, Mom. Say their names, remember their deeds. Lance Corporal Victor Dew, United States Marine Corps. My son, my hero. Thank you. Just go. Just go. Okay, right now what we're going to do is we are going to do a flag folding ceremony. The flag folding ceremony represents the same religious principles on which our country was originally founded. The portion of the flag denoting honor is the canton of blue, containing the stars representing the states our veterans served in uniform. The canton field of blue dresses from left to right and is inverted when draped as a pall on a casket of a veteran who has served our country in uniform. In the armed forces of the United States, at the ceremony of retreat, the flag is lowered, folded in a triangle fold, and kept under watch throughout the night as a tribute to our nation's honored dead. The next morning it is brought out and, at the ceremony of reveille, run aloft as a symbol of our belief in the resurrection of the body. The flag folding ceremony represents the same religious principles on which our great country was originally founded. Today, we have Staff Sergeant Rafael Salas and Sergeant Carlos Torian of the Recruit Substation Roseville to perform the flag folding ceremony. At the end of the ceremony, the folded flag will be presented to our guest of honor, Chief Warrant Officer Michael Connor, United States Army, retired. The first fold of our flag is a symbol of life. The second fold is a symbol of our belief in eternal life. The third fold is made in honor and remembrance of the veteran departing our ranks, and who gave a portion of his or her life for the defense of our country to attain peace throughout the world. The fourth fold represents our weaker nature. As American citizens trusting in God, it is Him we turn to in times of peace, as well as in times of war, for His divine guidance. The fifth fold is a tribute to our country. In the words of Stephen Decatur, our country, in dealing with other countries, may she always be right. But it is still our country, right or wrong. The sixth fold is for where our hearts lie. It is with our heart that we pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The seventh fold is a tribute to our armed forces, for it is through the armed forces that we protect our country and our flag against all enemies, whether they be found within or without the boundaries of our republic. The eighth fold is a tribute to the one who entered into the valley of the shadow of death, that we might see the light of day, and to honor our mother, for whom it flies on Mother's Day. The ninth fold is a tribute to womanhood. It has been through their faith, love, loyalty, and devotion that has molded the character of the men and women who have made this country great. The 10th fold is a tribute to Father, who has also given his sons and daughters for the defense of our country since he or she was first born. The 11th fold represents the lower portion of the seal of King David and King Solomon and glorifies the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The 12th fold represents an emblem of entity and glorifies God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. The 13th and last fold, when the flag is completely folded, the stars are uppermost, reminding us of our national motto, "In God We Trust." After the flag is completely folded and tucked in, it has the appearance of a cocked hat, ever reminding us of the soldiers who served under General George Washington and the sailors and Marines who served under Captain John Paul Jones and were followed by their comrades and shipmates in the U.S. Armed Forces, preserving for us the rights, privileges, and freedoms we enjoy today. The next time you see a flag ceremony honoring someone that has served our country, either in the armed forces or in our civilian services, such as the police force or fire department, keep in mind all the important reasons behind each and every movement. They have paid the ultimate sacrifice for all of us.
On behalf of the President of the United States, the United States Marine Corps, and the grateful nation, please accept this token of our appreciation for your loyal and faithful service.
If I may, I just, I always consider myself sort of a tough guy, but all these stories and reflections on what my family went through, this never goes away. All the time, I think probably one of the worst comments ever made is time heals everything. It heals nothing. It just helps you cope better with what goes on. I think of all the men I lost in Vietnam every day. I pray for them, and I pray for the families that suffer. And I just know it's something you're gonna have to deal with for the rest of your life. But hopefully someday we'll all get together and we'll all give those hugs, and we'll all be together once again. Thank you so much. Appreciate this.
Thank you. Very well done. This ceremony would not be possible without the dedication and the hard work of the Rotary Club of Granite Bay, Gold Star mothers, families, Blue Star moms, the American Legion, and the United States Marine Corps. We thank you all. At this time, I'd like to introduce Mark Soto, co-founder, executive director of the Honor Group, who will be sharing with us the story of the Honor Group, which includes education of students and coaches and communities about the needs of our military veterans, teaching patriotism while raising money for the injured and ill and wounded veterans. Please welcome Mark Soto.
I usually don't need a mic. Being a football coach for as long as I've been, I know how to yell pretty well. Also, I come from a family of ministers, so we know how to yell pretty well. But anyways, guys, I just wanted to close this ceremony today about honoring some amazing people that helped to put this event together. And Captain Rocky Deal, thank you so much. I mean, your story was powerful, and thank you so much, sir. Former POW Mike Connor, seeing you get that flag was tearful, my friend, and you deserve that. So God bless you, my friend. Kimberly Steinman Elmquist, you're a dear friend, and I just can't say enough about you sharing your story about your dad. God bless you. All the Gold Star families that are in attendance, it's humbling. It's very humbling to have you here. My friend, Patty Schumacher. Our story is deep, and I'm going to share just a little bit of it with you guys today. And Manpreet Kaur. I mean, I don't know how anybody could get through that and not be crying. It's a powerful story of her family that migrated here, and they're definitely wonderful, wonderful people. I'll never forget when I first learned about what a Gold Star was. I'll never forget it. I was living right up the street, right up here in Granite Bay, right off of Auburn Folsom in Douglas, and I got a phone call from a neighbor friend that lives right up the road here, and he knew that I had some boys that were serving in the military, and one was in the Marine Corps and one was in the Army, and they both were seeing terrible deployments, lots of friends killed and wounded, and it was affecting our family seriously. But I still never felt or really understood what a Gold Star was until that day when a friend of mine calls me up and says, "Mark, Coach," he goes, "I know your son's in the Marine Corps, and a family that lives right next door to us had some Marines walk up to their door and knock on their door, and I think something terrible's happened." So I said, "Well, what do you think happened, Alex?" And he goes, I think their boy was killed. You might know him. He played football at Granite Bay. And at the time, I just got done coaching at Granite Bay, and I was coaching over at Del Oro High School. And I remember getting that word, and I said, I got to do something. I got to call the family. I got to find out what's going on. I got to go over there and say, what can I do to help? So, through a period of events, I ended up getting the Schumachers' phone number, and I called them when they were on their way to Dover to pick up and retrieve the body of their son. And I just called Patty and I called Tom, and they answered the phone. And I said, "Is there anything I can do, guys? Anything I could do?" And that's when Patty told me that Victor was killed. She confirmed it. and also told me that he was engaged to be married at that time. I was stunned, and I just told her, I said, you know what, I know the media, I know how they work. If there's anything I could do for you, I'd really like to be there and do that. So through a series of events, I got to know the family as they brought the body of their son home. But then it hit me, guys. It hit me. What a Gold Star is. What a Gold Star mother and family go through. And then you realize when you see this great amount of people here to honor and to give blessings to these Gold Star mothers and that POW flag, you realize that only 1% of America gets it. Only 1% of America fight and serve, while 99% of the others don't even know. Guys, what we do with the Honor Group, what we do is we do our best to go into schools across this great land throughout this state of California and to educate these students and these coaches and communities that don't get it. They don't hear it. They don't feel it. And through the magic of a football game, we bring thousands together. Some of you probably have seen it, where we educate them about what a hero looks like. We tell them it's not the men and women, it's not the Kardashians, it's not the rap stars that we should emulate. It's the men and women of our armed forces that fight, bleed, and die for our freedom. Those are the ones we should raise up. Those are the ones that we should honor. Those are the ones that we should celebrate. That's what we do. So they brought Victor home, and they asked me to be one of the men that would eulogize him. It was the greatest honor of my life. And then I realized that my son was serving in the same battalion, and after I eulogized Victor, my son calls me from Afghanistan, and he says, Dad, and the cell phone was crackling. Dad. He goes, my colonel just told me that there was a coach that eulogized Victor. He goes, Dad, was that you? And I said, yes, son, that was me. And this is where our lives changed. Dad, I was there. I cut Victor out of the car. As a football coach, I was coaching on the football field right over here at Del Oro. I couldn't think. I couldn't show up to work. I couldn't walk on the football field. And the coaches would see the pain in my eyes. And they'd often ask me, Coach, while the kids are kneed up at the end of practice, will you tell them what you're going through? Will you tell them what your boys are going through? And they would give me the honor of sitting there and telling these kids while they were there after football practice about what the Marines, the Army soldiers, the corpsmen, everybody were experiencing. I'd tell them about how my boy would call me and he'd say, Dad, I just want to come home with my legs. On that football field, I saw young men change. I saw young men, after they make a tackle, after they scored a touchdown, run off that field and run up to me and say, I made that tackle for your boy. I made that touchdown for the Marines. Hoorah! It changed our life. I got to know Patty and Tom. I got to know the Carr family. I got to know many other Gold Star families around this area. And that's where the idea of the Honor Group came up. Our mission is to educate students, coaches, and communities about patriotism while they innocently, through the magic of their sport, raise money for injured, ill, and wounded veterans. It's an honor what we do. It's an honor to educate them. It's an honor to tell them about the 1% that fight, bleed, and die for our freedom. And I know you know this, every one of you. Freedom is not free. And we must not ever forget that. God bless you all. Thank you so much for allowing me this moment. And whenever you drive up this road and you see those flags waving in the breeze, always think about those boys and girls that fight for us. God bless you all.
Thank you for all you do. Thank you. It's important work. I don't think it's talked about enough, and I appreciate your message and what you do. We're going to change the program just slightly. We're going to release the doves here in a few minutes, but as we're all in here, we wouldn't be able to see the doves, so I'm going to give my closing remarks, and then we're going to come out, watch the doves being released, and then make our way over to the flags. So if you'll bear with me just a couple more minutes and we'll finish this thing up. Also, I will let you know we have food over there if you'd like to partake in some food. And so let me get on with this. I'll stop stalling here a little bit. I want to thank every one of you for coming out today, sharing our experience, sharing the stories, realizing the sacrifice. We'd like to thank all the Gold Star mothers and their families. By dedicating this POW flag, we remember all the prisoners of war and missing in action, still missing in action. This place of honor that the Rotary Club of Granite Bay built is our proclamation. That is our proclamation that we will never, ever forget. I invite you to come on your own and walk through the Walk of Honor as we see the new developments and the new projects going on. We welcome your suggestions. We want this to be a place of very special reflection that will live on forever. God bless the Gold Star mothers and their families. God bless the Blue Star moms. All of the heroes here today that have joined us. All of the men and women that are defending our freedom and our liberty. So this could never be taken away from us. God bless the MIA and POWs and the fallen. And God bless America. Thank you very much. So we're going to